We start our trip at Corpach at the north end of Loch Ness. The view over to Fort William from here is utterly breathtaking. The white canal buildings and the Pepperpot Lighthouse in the foreground, with the most wonderful backcloth of Ben Nevis at 4,400 feet, the largest mountain in the British Isles. The Caledonian Canal stretches 60 miles from Corpach at its south end to Inverness in the north. Only about a third of it is man-made. The remainder consists of 4 lochs that already lie along the Great Glen, a geological fault which lies diagonally across Scotland, almost tearing it apart. It connects the west coast at Loch Ness to the Moray Firth in the east. Banavie was my next stop. Here we find the longest staircase loch in the UK, Neptune's Staircase. I decided to head north by Gairlochie, a little hamlet where the road turns sharp east over a swing bridge. When I arrived, the road was closed to allow the lockkeeper to open the swing bridge to allow a couple of yachts through. This section of the canal is very picturesque indeed. I decided to head over to the set of lochs at the north end of the basin. There's an attractive avenue of Caledonian pines along the gravel towpath between the 2 lochs, and as I reached the second loch, the most beautiful tranquil basin opened out in front of me. A couple of cyclists had camped overnight in a flat grassy area at the canal side. I looked back over towards the campers. There was a most pastoral tree-lined bay alongside where many yachts were tied up for the night. The stunning reflection of this tree-lined corner appeared still in the calm, serene waters of the canal basin. It was a spectacular scene. Just ahead, the path narrows and curves around to the left. Sitting prominently above the row of bushes is another little Pepperpot lighthouse, where the canal enters freshwater Loch Lochy. These attractive little whitewashed lighthouses are there to guide boats to the canal entrance. It was a wonderful scene. I was now heading back towards the swing bridge, which takes the road to the east to link with the main A82. We reached the main road about a mile north of Spain Bridge, at the same turnoff for one of the most iconic landmarks in the Highlands, the Commander Memorial. This very impressive bronze monument was built in dedication to the British Commando forces who trained in the area during the Second World War. They were stationed at nearby Achnacarry Castle. The original castle was a Cameron stronghold, which was burnt down in the aftermath of the Jacobite defeat of Culloden. It sits in a very prominent location, at a bend in the main A82. The reason behind its siting was that when soldiers arrived at Spain Bridge Station to train as commandos, they were met by trucks onto which their kit was loaded. They, on the other hand, were expected to speed march the 7 miles to the training centre in full battle kit and carrying their weapon within an hour. Failures were sent straight back in the next train to their unit. The monument is on the route of this march. As we were standing at the memorial, an army helicopter made a flyby, then headed off towards the mountains. It was very emotional. Beyond Loch Lochy, we arrive at Loch Lochy. At the side of the road we come across an obelisk erected in 1812 above a well. In the top there's a sculpture of a hand holding a dagger and 7 severed heads. 2 prominent members of the MacDonalds of Keppoch were murdered by their uncle and his sons in a brawl in 1663. Keppoch clansmen eventually managed to obtain letters of fire and sword and set out with 50 men. The uncle and his 6 sons were killed and decapitated. The 7 severed heads were washed in the well below the obelisk before the heads were presented to the MacDonald chief at Glengarry. 7 headless corpses have been exhumed to verify the tale. A few miles further on brings me to where Loch Oich becomes the Caledonian Canal again. Here we arrive at the Aberchalder Swing Bridge. In 1849, the old bridge across the River Oich at Aberchalder was washed away. This led to the building of a new bridge in 1854, the eye-catching Victoria Bridge. A 150-foot suspension bridge which was designed and patented by James Dredge, a brewery owner turned civil engineer. Fort Augustus sits on the extreme southwest corner of Loch Ness. It may only be a village, but it always seems to leave its impression on anyone heading through the Great Glen. The layout of Fort Augustus makes it a most attractive little village and a must-stop for anyone touring in this part of the Highlands. The canal side is a mecca for tourists, and all along the locks are the many alfresco eating areas in front of the busy cafes, restaurants and bars, or spending a lazy couple of hours watching everything going on round about you is an absolute delight. It would be a mistake not to stop and spend an hour or so here. The impressive flight of locks which tumble down to the loch side are a most attractive feature, and bounding them on the south side are a string of pleasant little shops, cafes and pubs. It was a wonderful warm summer's night, and as the elegant catamaran glides past the Pepperpot Lighthouse, the bar opens. And no matter how many of the wonderful little sensations you manage on the trip, there is still very little likelihood of witnessing the elusive resident of the Loch, Nessie. I made my way to the point. It looked as if the passengers were going to enjoy a very pleasant evening cruise up the Loch tonight. Urquhart Castle sits in a headland in the outskirts of Drumnadrochit. The ruins we see here today were built in the 1200s, and it was further added to on 2 or 3 occasions after that. It really started deteriorating after it was slighted by government forces in 1690 to prevent it falling into the hands of the Jacobites. The gatehouse was blown up, and much of it still remains where it landed. The entrance opens onto the Nether Bailey, the main courtyard. At the far end is a grand tower. This was the main part of the castle. On the loch side of the Nether Bailey is a great hall, and on this side of it is a kitchen. Then we have the water gate, an entrance taking you down to the loch side. A Loch Ness cruise ship was offloading its passengers at a jetty by the loch side. There was another sitting out in the loch waiting to get in. It was certainly time to go. I took one glance back to check that there was nothing watching me from the loch, then headed on. Drumnadrochit always seems very busy, due to the most attractive little green, which seems to draw the tourists in like a magnet. If you want to know about Nessie, then you've come to the right place. Drumnadrochit is Nessieland. At the top of the main street is Nessieland. It is not a subtle experience, it's in your face Nessie, and it's set in and around the grounds of the Loch Ness Lodge Hotel. If you want to see Nessie bad enough, your best bet is to head down to the Fiddler's Whisky Bar and try a cross-section of their wonderful single malts. You might even end up seeing Morag heading over from Lochmorrar as well. I arrived at the strange little village of Canich. There's a well-stocked general store and post office and an attractive pub. Canich Stores even stocks a 10-year-old single malt exclusive to them, Affric Trail. I came to the signpost for the Dog Falls, so I headed along that way. This wasn't what I expected. The river seems to squeeze its way through a steep gorge here. At the far end of the gorge, the rocks almost form a cave, and deep within a strangely lit magical cauldron full of spray, the river seems to cascade over rocks before tumbling downstream. What makes it so fascinating is that you're aware that there is something dramatic occurring in there. You're just not too sure what. I was satisfied with my trip to the Dog Falls and headed on. I followed the River Affric south and soon arrived at the breathtaking Loch Benevian. There is a Forestry Commission car park about halfway down the loch, and I decided to stop for a look around. There were a couple of picnic tables in the car park, but there was too much to see and not enough time. I soon arrived at the car park at the end of the road. This is where you return to nature. The noise of the cars give way to the call of the osprey, of the golden eagle. It's also home to the wildcats, the pine martens and the otters. You can put your mobile phone away now. There is no mobile coverage here. There was a wonderful view from here of the estate buildings and the hunting lodge. At last I could see the loch, and lovely it was too. I headed over towards a memorial overlooking the loch. The view from here was magnificent. In the distance were the mountains of the Kintail Forest. It was so peaceful. I decided to visit Inverness. The completion of the canal at Clachnahari proved problematic. The Beauly Firth here was very shallow, and 2 366-metre-long parallel embankments had to be built in order to reach deep water. The whole project was a major undertaking. The locks here can be used for 4 hours either side of high water during daylight hours. The huge stone commemorated the building of the canal. We started our trip along the Great Glen at Corpach, the canal's southernmost point. So what better place to end but here at Clachnahari at its northern extremity.